We continue Unit 3 Inverses with Day 3, Writing Equations of an Inverse. Sometimes you may actually want to know the equation of the inverse and not just see the graph. To find the equation for the inverse of a given relation, all you need to do is switch x and y and solve for y. To begin, let's look at y equals 4x plus 8. First, we switch x and y to get x equals 4y plus 8. Subtract 8 from both sides and divide by 4. The inverse is x minus 8 divided by 4. Now we do need a way to denote the inverse from the original y equals 4x plus 8, and the inverse would be denoted by a little -1. So the inverse of y equals 4x plus 8 is x minus 8 divided by 4. Let's look at the next example. First, we switch x and y. Now we add 6 to both sides. I still need to get y squared by itself, so we divide by 8 and get y squared equals x plus 6 divided by 8. Notice I have not solved for y. I still have y squared, and to undo something that's squared, we have to take the square root of both sides. Now I'm not finished. I do need to denote that this is an inverse. So we're going to put a little inverse symbol right there with the y. And that one is done. Let's look at another one. F of x equals 3x plus 2 over x minus 4. Well, remember, f of x is just a fancy way of saying y. So my first step would be to switch the x and y values. So we get x equals 3y plus 2 over y minus 4. Now, this is the same thing as saying x over 1, and I need to solve for y. So what I will do is use proportions and cross multiply on each side. So the first one would be x times y minus 4 is equal to 1 times 3y plus 2. And let's distribute, and we get xy minus 4x is equal to 3y plus 2. Let's move all my y terms to one side because I am solving for y, and the x terms to the other. In the first term, let's factor out a y. And to get y by itself, divide by x minus 3. So y inverse is equal to 4x plus 2 divided by x minus 3. Next problem. Write the equation of the inverse, graph the function, its inverse, and y equals x as a dotted line on the same axis. I'm going to go ahead and graph the line y equals x. You do need to name the lines as you draw them, and it's good to have them in different colors. To get the inverse, we switch x and y, and then solve for y. We solve by adding 5 to both sides, and we get 3y squared is equal to x plus 5. Divide by 3, and we get y squared is equal to x plus 5 divided by 3. I still need to solve for y squared, as this is, I need to solve for y. This is y squared, so we take the square root of both sides. So the inverse is equal to the square root of x plus 5 all over 3. Let's graph these. If I plug in negative 2, we get 7 for the y. If we plug in a negative 1, we get a negative 2. If we plug in a 0, we get a negative 5. Plug in a 1, we get a negative 2. And if we plug in a 2, we get a 7. So let's graph the original. Plot the inverse. Remember, all we have to do is just switch the table for the inverse. Is the inverse a function? And you can easily see that it is not a function. This concludes writing equations of inverses.